Hi, our family reached out to Coach Karla, a certified mental game coach, to help our young son, who's very athletic and competitive, deal with some of his frustrations and emotions on the field, especially after a loss.
Hello, hello, and welcome. My name is Deanna, and I'm absolutely delighted to be here today with Dr. Karla Steingraber and Ryan. Dr. Steingraber, or we call her Coach Karla, is a licensed mental game coach, and Ryan's son Gavin actually worked with Karla. So we are really delighted to find out how that works and what that means, and how mental game coaching can actually help you and your family as well. So I think it makes sense to start with you, Karla. You're a licensed clinical psychologist, but you're also an avid athlete. You're a marathoner, a strength trainer, an equestrian. So becoming an IMCGA certified mental game coach really seems logical, with all of your interests. But can you tell us exactly what a mental game coach is?
Oh, yeah, certainly. So it came out of sports psychology, really, because people started to realize that there was a big mental component to any kind of game with stress, anxiety, and how people feel before and after a game or before or after a bad shot. So they started doing performance coaching, sports psychology, but certainly it
Mm.
has extended into other fields like into the theater as well as executive coaching, where people have to do public speaking and lead teams, things like that.
Mhm. So, of course, that begs the question for Ryan. You originally consulted Coach Karla for your son, who was then 10. So, what was going on with your son, Gavin? And then what prompted you to reach out to Karla?
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to talk about Coach Karla today. Karla is a fellow mom in the community and friend, and I reached out to her just sort of venting a little bit about some of the issues we're facing with my son and struggles with sports, specifically sports related frustrations and emotional regulation. And
Mm.
just kind of asked her, knowing that she's a psychologist and in the community, if she had any resources. And she shared with me that she was actually a coach for athletes, and she has services that she could provide. So it was great because I had never known that this kind of specialty existed in this area. So it was a great, just serendipitous match when she shared that she could provide these services.
That's great. And what kind of services were you looking for? So, what exactly was going on that made you know that we need to talk to somebody?
Yeah, our son is really passionate, from when he was a little guy, in preschool or any little tot games. He was always extremely passionate. And when he was younger, we said, well, he's got a lot of energy and very passionate about games. But as he started to get a little older, his reactions and his reaction to losing and his mindset
Mhm.
became a little bit more extreme than his teammates. So he would get a pretty negative mindset and very upset when he lost, and it seemed to
Mhm.
become all about winning. Really angry about his
Mm.
teammates and himself. Very negative self-talk after games, and would kind of withdraw and go into
Mm.
anger. And there was an incident where it was so bad on the field. Parents came up to me to kind of offer their sympathy, condolences, and then one mom even said, have you thought about talking to someone? Having Gavin talk to someone.
Mhm.
And I said, that's a great idea. And I am not. I've seen a psychologist in my life, and
Mhm.
there's, to me, I embrace it, and I thought this is great. So that's when I reached out to Karla to say, what do you think? And then she shared with me about mental coaching for athletes.
Mhm. That's so wonderful because so many parents, that behavior can be so challenging for parents. And you almost get a little bit embarrassed where you're like, oh, like, let me just, okay, he doesn't have to do sports anymore. So it's wonderful that you took it upon yourself to seek out help from Karla. Karla, how were you able to help, or what did you recommend?
Well, actually, Gavin was really fun to work with because his parents were so supportive and involved to the extent that he wanted them involved. Right from the beginning, we just identified what were some of the problem areas. And, like Ryan mentioned, he was getting very upset and frustrated with teammates who were missing shots or the team that wasn't getting the game won. And he likes to win just like the rest of us do. He just had a harder time feeling okay with the losses. So we started doing some exercises that he could practice right away. First session in my office on calming himself down or starting to think about things from a little bit of a different perspective. Some of the things we have to realize is that effort in the end is the most important thing, or the process of how we get there. And also, there's no way to win every game. And if we knew we wouldn't really be enjoying the competition at all.
So he's only 10. I so get this when someone is a grown up or an adult and they have a specific sort of sports goal. Competitive athletes often will turn to mental game coaches. So Gavin is 10. What is it that you're able to do in working with children? So that's a question for you, Karla. And then I'm actually curious, Ryan, for you, like, what did you see different after he went through mental game coaching? So yeah, Karla, if you want to start first.
Yeah, sorry. So someone as young as Gavin, really a lot of it is about normalizing the situation, because even though he's played on a lot of different teams and had in some ways a lot of experience, he certainly hasn't had the years of maturing and the years of having to cope with tons of losses. Michael Jordan has a great quote on that where everybody talks about the 3,000 baskets he made and nobody talks about the 30,000 he missed. It's really true. We focus often so much on the wins and forget about how to cope with the losses. So really, with someone that young, getting them to realize how normal his experience is, his anger, totally normal. And we just had to change it from being something that was becoming a little bit more problematic or pathological into something that he could use positively on the field. Because that kind of anger or energy is great. Just don't let it, make you lose your cool. There's nothing wrong with being angry about a loss. He ought to be angry about a loss. But now he's got to work on how does the whole team come together, or if it's an individual sport, what are you going to do next time that's better? And also thinking a little bit about what it means to win, what it means to lose. Similarly, putting the emphasis on the three things that are most important in any game. And that is that you did your best. You did your best the whole way through the game, and that you played fair. And that's what matters. Because sometimes you're going to be up against a competitor who's just way better than you. Sometimes you're going to be up against someone who's not as good as you. And sometimes the wind is blowing in the wrong direction. And who knows what's going to happen. The mental game piece of it is very behavioral. And the psychological piece is much more of the emotional piece. And for me, luckily, I've got the flexibility to kind of marry the two.
Ryan, what does it look like in day-to-day life? And what kinds of exercises and things did he do? And what changes did you see?
Sure. So when we first started with Coach Karla, she gave us an assessment, and we were able to take some time and sit down as a family. My husband's very involved in the sports as well. So we filled out the assessment, and we talked about some of the challenges, some of his priorities, some of the great things and not so great things. And we just started to have that conversation. And then when he had his sessions with Coach Karla, they did different activities. And one of the things I can echo what she said is normalizing. Gavin knew that there was something off, that he knew he was acting differently than his teammates. And so just going and having her say, I'm an athlete too. I understand the importance of winning, and this is okay. We're going to work on this. I think it was almost like permission for him to say, like, I don't need to hate this part of myself, but what can I do about it? And so she worked on all sorts of cool things with him. My husband and I talk about one of the activities was with a ball and talking, with it was like fast dribbling and slow dribbling and talking during it. They also did visualization and breathing. And so some of this is bringing awareness to him that he has the ability to control and manage these reactions. This is not the other team's fault. This is, the wind's blowing the wrong way, or the ref. We get a lot of that. The ref, the bad
Oh,
calls.
the ref is always bad and the
Always.
ref doesn't like you. No, the
Yes.
ref didn't like Gavin. That's totally what it was.
Yes, the worst ref in the world gets assigned to his team somehow.
Of course.
So it's just bringing that awareness, helping him learn to like just stay cool, and just be able to manage those emotions throughout the games. And then we did assessments after games. So then after the games, then after we started seeing her, we would talk about it. How did it go? And it just sort of all tied it together for us. And spoiler alert, I can say since we started seeing Coach Karla, we have not had an emotional outburst on a game that left us embarrassed.
Wow, that's
and
fabulous.
I was just talking to my husband about it, and how, we still get nervous when we go to games. We both are like, oh God, how's this going to go?
Sure.
And, other parents are focused on like different things about the game, but we are just like, is he going to break down? Is he going to be a good sport? We just want him to be a good sport and play fair. And we don't care if he wins. I mean, I think it's fun to win, obviously, and they do want to win. I just want him to be friendly to his teammates and the other, teams, and
Sure.
just getting a good experience. And so we've just seen so much progress, and now he has these tools, but I think it's still a work in progress. And now we always know we can go to Coach Karla in the future too, when other things start to come up.
That begs the question, when you talk about how you and your husband are really nervous as you're going into games, that your child can sense that, and that can actually raise their nerves level. And so I wonder, Karla, when you're working with children, is there any complimentary thing or tips that you give parents as well?
Oh, for sure. And, the great thing is, in Gavin's case, he has really supportive parents who really, just like Ryan said, they don't care if he wins or loses. And they're not banking on some kind of a college scholarship for him. So really, they are allowing him to play what he wants to play so he can have fun. But certainly, I will work with parents to the extent necessary on just letting the game be fun, because that's the whole purpose of sports, really. The purpose of sports is not to make money. The purpose of sports is to have fun.
Although that said, I mean, you do have clients, specifically student athletes. How do you keep it, I guess, focus on the fun, but knowing that for some kids, that's actually why they're getting mental game coaching?
Still has to be fun, though. I mean, just think about, if you hate your job, how great are you going to be at it if you're not enjoying it anymore? It really has to be for the love of the game to some extent or another. Otherwise, people drop out. They really do. So, and if it is their career, or if it is their career trajectory, we can make fun out of honing certain things, like learning. Learning can be really painful if you take it as an injury every time, that here's another example of something you didn't know. Or you can take it as something really exciting. This is your opportunity to get that little edge above somebody else. This is your edge to making it better, taking that step forward. So it's about that growth mindset and being excited about it.
When you look at a growth mindset, I have to imagine that everything Gavin was learning, that would just permeate his school and everything else. How did you see that manifest in other areas of his life once he started with the mental game coaching?
So much of his life is sports, whether it's after school, on the field, with friends, or, at the park. And, we expect a lot of Gavin in, his behavior. And so it's, also it's just bringing awareness of, you got to, control your emotions, whether it's in a formal game or not. So we've just seen a lot of growth. This is not to say we don't have challenges. We still have incidents and things that occur where we need to talk to him. And so it's not like, okay, he's, the best teammate ever and we're good, but we just have a dialogue going now about behavior, expectations, positive mindset, and how he's setting a good example. He wants to be an athlete for the rest of his life, and so I think these are good skills to learn. But as he gets older, I can see us probably, if he really wants to be an athlete in college, that he's going to, there's still some areas to grow and to learn to focus and, not blame things. But yeah, we did see a lot of growth. And we were afraid for him to play travel baseball. Baseball is one of those sports where, it can be so slow that if there is an athlete that's a player that's having an emotional reaction, it's more noticeable than
Sure.
football or basketball, perhaps. And this year he's going to be playing travel baseball, and through, it's been a slower start with practices and whatnot, but we're about to start the season soon. And we're just going in, excited, hopeful, but also, keeping this conversation going about the awareness and positive mindset. Yeah, no, I think it's a whole family experience. I think my husband attended a lot of the sessions with Coach Karla, and for him, it's also education and learning. And this is, we're parents, we're not psychologists, and so this was a learning experience for all of us. And I think my husband learned a lot, how he reacts to Gavin as well with this, and so we're just really grateful that this coaching exists. We had no idea.
Oh, that's wonderful. Well, now, Karla, you've done master classes in mental game coaching in golf and tennis. And then we are already mentioned that you run marathons. You're a super strength trainer. You're certified in kettlebells. And who cannot notice all of your medals right behind you? Those are all hard earned by Karla. So how does your training as an athlete help you when you work with clients? Or Ryan, is that something that you all noticed as really a benefit of working with Coach Karla?
Absolutely. She can talk the talk. She could relate to Gavin. And that was one of the first things we noticed, is she understood what he was going through.
I think it is important to participate in your own athletic endeavors, not just for general overall health, but you know what it's like to hurt and to have to keep going, or the frustration of not making the time you wanted to make, or whatever it is. And not that you have to be as involved in sports as the people you're working with, but certainly having some life experience there always helps.
So Ryan, what would you say to other families who are considering consulting a sports psychologist or certified mental game coach?
Yeah, I think the hardest part was sort of saying, okay, we need to do, like taking that first step. And then from there, it was really easy. So it was sort of like saying to ourselves, okay, we need to do something about this. And then getting connected, obviously, with Karla was the biggest, a big advantage, and great. But then once we went from there, it almost like lightened the load. You know what I'm saying? Where I felt overwhelmed. And then it was like, we have a plan. And she's seen this. She's actually handled things like this with other athletes and other children. And so this is not something that's insurmountable, and we can face this. So that, I think, it's sort of like that initial, once you get over the hump, like, I think we need to talk to somebody. And then once we did, it was like, okay, we're good. And now we know whatever challenge in the future, like if in high school, if there's some, focus issues, which, all these exercises, I feel like he could do again as he gets older in different stages in his life, and would be a benefit. I find with mental health and any kind of services from psychology, it never hurts. Like there's never a negative, but it is painful. And especially, it's easy for me to say as a parent, it doesn't, but as a, when you're the client, it brings up, and Gavin didn't always enjoy this, that's, I want to make sure he didn't always come home and say, I love this, but I think he benefited, and he realized he benefited from this.
Yeah, I think what I saw in him is, of course, he was a reticent 10-year-old, and it's hard being the one where you're sort of the identified patient, where you feel like everybody's looking at you and saying you're the problem here. But what I saw is that as soon as he started to see that there were these little tweaks he could do, then he wasn't so reticent anymore. He was more engaged and more able to connect, because really it's up to him. It's not that I'm doing anything magical to fix him. I'm giving him some tools, and he's got to figure out which ones work for him. And he did. He did.
Yeah.
Karla, are there other reasons that a parent might contact you for their student athlete?
Oh, sometimes I've had high schoolers where they're throwing up before they dive into the pool for a meet.
Mm.
They're just that anxious. I've
Mhm.
had people where on the more semi-pro level
Mhm.
where they're having a hard time staying focused, even though they're in the middle of a match. And we just work
Mm.
on getting back into the game instead of having their mind elsewhere on after the game. So different things like that, depending on what's going on. There's so many different reasons that somebody might get in touch with a mental game coach.
Mhm. And so people can contact you at the website at Everstrong Coaching, or also, I guess, by email with the info at Everstrong Coaching. I would also love to encourage people to subscribe to your YouTube channel. So you can subscribe just right below us, or follow on Instagram and Facebook. So, well, thank you so much. It was really exciting to learn more about mental game coaching. And Ryan, thank you so much for sharing your family's personal story about how Coach Karla was able to help you, and how your son is now on his road to his future, which clearly is so full of the sports that he loves.
Thank you so
Thanks for
much.
having us. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.